Hello everybody, Crow here, and I want to do a review on a game that is somewhat rare in the Jaguar library, the Atari Jaguar. It's actually one of the rarest games. On Atari Age, it actually ranks an 8 out of 10 on the rarity, and that game is Atari Karts. And I don't know, one of the reasons this game is so rare is just because it came out so late in the Jaguar life. Jaguar is practically dead when this game came out. Along with Raymond, but I don't think Raymond is quite so rare. But I had to get this game because I like kart racing. I was always curious about it, but because the game was so rare, I didn't think I'd ever get a copy of it. If you look on eBay, in fact, right now on eBay, there's no copies of the game available. I look at completed listings; they have complete and packaged ones that went for well over $100. I wasn't going to pay $100 for the game, but I wound up going into one of my favorite game shops, and there they had it behind the glass case for $30, and for $30 I definitely was going to pick up this game. So let's go see some footage of Atari Karts. Alright, so the first thing that was obvious before even turning on the game is that this was inspired by Mario Kart. However, I didn't know which Mario Kart game to compare this to since the Jaguar is in the same generation as the Nintendo 64. However, the game is visually more comparable to Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo. After doing a bit of research, I found that this game was released sometime in 1995, which was 1 or 2 years before Mario Kart 64 and about 3 years after the release of Super Mario Kart. Since the game came out before Mario Kart 64, I'll be comparing it to Super Mario Kart. Visually, the game looks a lot more impressive than Super Mario Kart due to the advantage the Jaguar color palette has over the Super Nintendo. The game also has a nice hill effect over the Mode 7 type road that the Super Nintendo wouldn't have been capable of doing. The game also runs at an increased frame rate, but other than that, this game really has no other advantage over Super Mario Kart, and that's a shame considering the Jaguar hardware and the fact the game came out 3 years later. Like Super Mario Kart, sprite-based objects litter the road, while power-ups, road hazards, and even walls of the track are flattened to the road. Unlike Super Mario Kart, where the power-ups are randomly given from question blocks laying flat on the ground, the icons for the individual power-ups in Atari Karts are flattened to the track in set locations. The problem here is that the icons are too small, and since they are flattened to the road, it's difficult to tell what power-ups are on the road as you pass them by. Since we're on the subject of power-ups, they're all pretty disappointing in Atari Karts. There's power-ups for bursts of speeds, tighter turning, no skidding, and that's about it. Unfortunately, there are power downs as well that will slow you down and even reverse your controls, and let me tell you, I really hate getting the reverse controls power down. And it's not because I can't handle steering left for right and right for left, but it's because there's no warning when the effect is going to end, and if it ends while you're in the middle of the turn, you'll reverse course and usually plow right into a wall. Aside from that, there's really nothing else. There are no aggressive weapons in the game at all, well, aside from a reverse opponent controls power down, but that's only in a 2-player game. I guess that could be a good thing and make the game more about driving skill to set it apart from Super Mario Kart, but ultimately the lack of power-ups make this game feel kind of bland. And the blandness of the game just can't be attributed to the lack of power-ups. The entire presentation of the game, and even the characters themselves, have no real impact. I mean, this is Atari Karts, and only Bentley Bear from Crystal Castles is the only character I recognize. The rest of the characters just seem to be lazily created for this game, but I could be wrong on that. I just don't recognize any of these other characters from anything else. The tracks are also pretty bland. Well, the graphics look nice, but there's nothing to suggest this game takes place in an Atari world. In fact, some of the track schemes look like they were taken from Super Mario Kart and altered to some effect. The music in the game is nice, but it doesn't seem appropriate for a racing game. It actually sounds like it came out of a Commodore 64 demo or loader screen. Let me just pause for a second. You can hear some of the music that plays in the background of these tracks. It seems like more upbeat music could have been used to put a little bit more excitement into the races. As for the racing itself, it certainly isn't the worst I've ever played. The controls are decent except for one problem if you don't have the Jaguar Pro controller. So here is the standard Jaguar controller. This is not the Pro controller. The Pro controller has L and R shoulder buttons at the top. And the controller works fairly well for this game. It's very simple. The problem is that if you have the Pro controller, you can use the L and R shoulder buttons for like a tight turn. However, since this controller, the standard controller, does not have these buttons, they've remapped that to the 4 and the 6 buttons down here. And if you're playing this like normal and you want to do a hard turn, I don't see how you're going to be able to move your thumbs down here and still retain control of your vehicle. I mean, you could try to play the game like this, but it doesn't really work so well. I've tried it, and I usually wind up spinning out. But the game is fairly playable with the standard controller if you don't do the hard turns. You've lost down on a little advantage there, but it's still playable. But other than that, that's really the only problem with this controller. There's also a bit of an issue with colliding with other carts and walls. If you're coming up on another cart and bump them from behind, you'll most likely slow way down, or even sometimes just bounce backwards. And if you get bumped from behind, you'll get a boost of speed, but you'll also sometimes just fly out of control. The physics just don't seem quite right, but it's not as bad as when you run into a wall and get stuck in it, forcing you to slowly reverse your cart to get free. Might not be so bad if it didn't happen often, but on some tracks taking the corner a little too sharply can get you stuck in the wall. Game modes are really bare bones in this game. There's a couple of race difficulties to choose from, 3 race series events to choose from, and a handful of one-on-one miracle races, and also a 2-player mode, but that's about it. I didn't notice it right away, but there's no practice or time trial modes, and that would have really helped in learning the tracks. Ultimately, Atari Karts falls a bit short when compared to Super Mario Kart, but honestly, it's not that bad of a game. It is a bit nice to play a kart racing game where I don't have to worry about being assaulted by weapons from the other players. It does have several shortcomings, but considering what else is available on the Jaguar, it's not bad. Was it worth the $30 I spent on the game? Well, it definitely was. Being the rare game that it is, and also being halfway decent, I'd say I wouldn't have minded if I wound up paying a little bit more for it. Well, that's about it. Thanks everyone for watching. See y'all next time. Bye.